So good afternoon, and thank you for taking time to bring me to the stage, Aisha, and looking forward to talking about the application of mixed reality, in particular with my focus over the last year. We were busy making aircraft components at the beginning of the year. By about the 25th of March, I was on a phone call with the Prime Minister, and as part of GKN Aerospace, we pulled together a team with the Formula One companies and the high value manufacturing catapult, which I led with Dick Elsey, to pull in Microsoft. And this is the presentation I'd like to give around how things have changed in our air, not least that we don't have any aircraft flying, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, which is to talk about the advantage that we can bring from mixed reality into manufacturing environments. I'm going to take the time to just take you through a few slides to explain the journey. Most importantly, to take some lessons away from that journey, and hopefully we'll cover these grounds. So we're going to talk about the factory of the future, the agile principles. We brought in the Formula One teams, so we're going to talk about how we use them. We're going to talk about what does digitalization really mean when it comes to manufacturing, and how do we benefit programs of activity with the lights of mixed reality in delivering productivity gains, one, but also being safe in the environment that we now live within, and also to recognize that we will all need to adapt, and how we're going to change. Obviously, the biggest change that we saw at the beginning of the year was the NHS pressures around the number of ventilators, and that's why I stand here today thinking about this next surge that we're about to see. And obviously those ventilators will be hopefully not used, but if they are, they're there and available as a result. We went from a stand-up of a supply chain that was completely new between two different products, one with Penlon and the other one, which I'll talk more about, Smiths Medical devices. And we went from a rate of about 50 a week to thousands a week, and we ended up doing 14,400 or so in 14 weeks. So what we have here is a bit of a scene of the ventilator factory. One of the things that we did early on was to build a digital twin of both the ventilator and the factory, so that we could accommodate thinking around how we would socially distance, how we would train and instruct people. You can see the complexity of that particular virtual reality demonstrator that we created with a small company who does this, Pixelice. And then we built on that to create an interface into the ways of working. We actually built a discrete event modeling solution on the back of that, so we could actually work out where the bottlenecks in the factory were. We looked at the inspection technologies and used HoloLens to help us understand whether we had the actual parts that we expected in the goods inwards, because many people hadn't even seen the parts that we were producing in a brand new supply chain, and let alone understanding whether they fitted the medical regulation, which was all new. We also built on virtual collaboration and the ability to use the Microsoft HoloLens and the Dynamics suite to connect people together so that they could see what was happening in each other's factories without having the challenge of being in an unsafe environment or spreading the virus. And we also did a lot of work on training the assemblers of all these components. In the end, we had over 88, I think it was, HoloLens 1s and 2s, and our largest deployment has been to Rolls-Royce and GKN, and I think then on to Ford, and into the Airbus factory of the AMRC Cymru in north of Wales. So between the 100-odd people we had taking those around to train people, we had 3,000 people trained by the end of the period, assembling using HoloLens. So we did a lot of work early days, which is really important. So on the 25th of March, my daughter's birthday, as it happened, we got a call into the Cabinet Office, and the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary and the Duchy of Cornwall was in there talking to us about the desperate need to get hold of ventilators with an urgency that we'd never heard of in scaling up any manufacturing before. We were asked on day one, effectively, of that journey to assemble a team across industry. We did so ahead of time, and we brought the technology partners in, like Microsoft and PTC, who are going to be talking with me on this platform today, but also the likes of Autodesk, Accenture and Avanade. We also brought in quite a lot of initiatives, including some startups, to bring in some pace and urgency to the agile kind of ways of working. So to give you a little idea of that timeline, between day 0 and day 14, we took the whole Formula One design capability of 7 Formula One companies, from the likes of McLaren, Formula One, Williams, Mercedes, AMG, Red Bull, Williams Advanced Engineering, and brought them all together. And actually, for the first time, they were working on a design of something that they weren't competing on. They were collaborating. And what was great about that is we saw the pace that they said that they were working at was faster than that they'd ever worked at within their own factories. So interestingly, we got off the blocks very quickly, as you can imagine. We spent 4 days over the weekend, first weekend, doing a design review. We had a design champion in PA Consulting who was constantly going back and ensuring that the medical regulator was happy with our design. But we ended up getting a design into what we call the fast make supply chain, which included the Formula One supply chain, Renishaw, who were great partners at GKN. And we built the first components for 3 sets of the ventilators in 4 days. And literally on the Monday after closing the design off on the Friday, we ended up bringing to the table 3 ventilators on the Thursday, testing them, and they were put into a medical grade qualification process and were confirmed fit for purpose. So that's the pace that we were working at using Agile, but that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have access to the facilities, to the people that were working on the ventilators inside Luton with the use of the PTC products. We actually used HoloLens to record the standard operating instructions. Effectively, there weren't many paper written ones available for us to relay to the masses that we were going to be using. So PTC helped us record using Vuforia all those standard operating procedures. Once we had the design in hand and the manufacturing processes in hand and the test facilities being built, we had to go out and acquire a volume of supply chain which we didn't have access to until we turned on the tap of Rolls-Royce and their supply chain, with Accenture pulling out all the purchase orders and running the system. We trained people up on HoloLens from about the 14th day, or the 5th day to the 14th day. We'd actually, in that timeline, brought on board Avanade, who took the design that we had created, and you'll see that on the next slide. And this is the design that they took on. We used Autodesk Fusion 360 because all the Formula One teams and GKN and Renishaw didn't have access to the same CAD package, and we created a digital twin, 812 components in that design of the ventilator. And when you see the explosion of the bill of materials, you'll begin to see the complexity of this. It was not something insignificant to pull together a mechanical ventilator. We chose probably the most complex set of drawing instructions, so we ended up digitizing all of those and then pushing those into the supply chain, which was important. But we also used that digital data to recreate the training materials that we then used in HoloLens. So here we go. This is the start of the journey of digitalization. We still need the CAD reference data, and we need to make sure it was accurate. We then took that digitalization of the manufacturing supply chain, but also into the standard operating instructions. And we built out a capability to create those as assets which were digital, so we could distribute them widely and to many people as we could. Taking the need of paper off the table, and Thales came alongside us with PTC and Avanade to drive through the program to get all the training material up and together and out to the multiple production lines. We ended up with using mixed reality to record and capture, and then we also used a mixed reality using HoloLens, obviously, to replay those captures back to the intended audience of the assembly factories. We also built in to the ways of working a machine learning algorithm for machine visioning, and we took components through the process of being converted in from their CAD form through a machine that learnt every single component, looking at it through the lens of a camera, and then developed a tool that would allow us to confirm that we had the right part before we went into an assembly. We used that and then broadcast that into the HoloLens as well, so that you could see the component in your hand and you would be able to tell that it was the right component by verification using the AI inspection tools of Anomalous, a startup company that we created with Boeing and the ATI accelerator. That was a really important sort of venture. It took about 4 days to train the AI algorithm, but we learned an awful lot in the process. Some of the capabilities and some of the gaps still exist in getting to 100% qualification using AI, and that's one of the areas of improvement that we would take forward. And then finally, we were going into assembly of more complex components. We decided to partner with Avanade, and we will have a video here of how that worked. And basically, we worked alongside them, taking that data set that we had from the original Autodesk production 3D CAD data into a dynamics guide using HoloLens here to show what the operator would see as they took the virtual and the physical together and blended that for mixed reality purposes to help improve the speed and performance of the way in which we were working. We used Power BI from Microsoft to do the business intelligence and work out which assembly points were pinch points. We could learn from that, which people were assembling things quicker than others. We also learned from this, where the areas where we might need to split the production down and look at discrete event modeling again to improve the performance of our overall system and make sure there were no bottlenecks in the assembly centers. What we learned from doing this is obviously, you have to have good data to begin with. You need to be sure that you've got the right culture of people to take on board the learning. And some factories, without naming which ones, were better than others. The Rolls-Royce factory in Bristol picked up the HoloLens very quickly. Maybe the demographics of their team was a bit younger and had a lot more opportunity to explore the use of HoloLens before. But certainly we saw some clear advantages. When we started to share the learning between different centers of how people were assembling, we learned from that and could apply the learning directly into the guides. So here's an opportunity for everyone to think about, can you get productivity out of mixed reality? We believe so. And how do we do that? We built a kind of a structured approach through what was a very rapid sprint, if you want to call it that. We built out a huge collaboration solution. We used MS Teams to help us do that to begin with. We replicated production lines using PTC Vuforia, capturing the standard operating instructions effectively from the source in Luton with Smiths Medical. We kept people in the production environment safe because we weren't putting lots of people in amongst the teams working in these environments. We then used the training material. Actually, it wasn't just 1,000 workers. We had 3,000 workers across the Penlon and the Smiths Medical devices working on multiple sites. I think there were 7 lines in total. And we were able to conduct really high quality training. I think the other benefit was obviously the Dynamics suite and guides, but also remote assist, which came out of the benefit of using HoloLens across a number of sites. And finally, we ended up making sure that this was all tenanted on a single tenant so that there was protection of IP and easier to move people around. And one of the learning points here is you need to have the right data integrity and structure to make sure you can manage the deployment of such a large scale of mixed reality. Here we had over 100 HoloLenses in total, I believe, by the time we added up those that were from all the AMRC and the high value manufacturing centers, together with those from industry. And thanks to Microsoft for helping us get them all to the same standard, which was a big challenge in its own right. So there were mixed reality HoloLens 1s and 2s, and all brought together through a collaboration. And that really is the key insight. Obviously, collaboration is the heart of the ventilator challenge. Collaboration is the heart of our future of manufacturing going forward. Some of the learning between the Formula One teams was really interesting because they never used to collaborate in this way. And they learned something from this about how, if you've got a single common purpose, obviously you can do things faster. One of the things we learned from this is, getting people literally on the same page was really important. And MS Teams provided an access point for everyone to be at the same point in the journey. And if they weren't there, they could catch up. So even those people that came on later into the program could learn. Obviously, PTC Avanade's solution helped us prepare people for the adoption. And one of the things they did, they worked with us to make sure that people were familiar with wearing the devices, understanding the benefits of those devices, and understanding how they could lean up their enterprise very quickly. Once they saw the benefits, I think we found people speeding to an agile way of working, closer to what we saw with some of the startups, but never quite getting there. So one of the things we learned from the Anomalous partnership is everything needs trust, and we needed to bring on board a solution that was inspecting at quality levels that were unseen before of a machine learning algorithm built in these timescales. And obviously it took a little bit of time for people to believe that this algorithm could be as good as a human. But we soon learned after training it for some 4 days that we could get there. So one of the things we must learn from this experience is, technology is not the answer, but it certainly could be a big enabler, but also build up the people and the collaboration experience. So for me, just rounding out here, now I'm taking that journey one stage on and building a custom fit mask business, which is using all the technologies and then the learning from the ventilator challenge so that we can solve medical grade masks for those people that don't fit today's standard mask, which is over 20% of the population today. And we're working across the world in various research centers with the US, in Oak Ridge, in India, and in Kenya through a university partnership we built there. And we're hoping to bring to market through a program all of the concepts of digital manufacturing using the best of the best technology, but to serve our key workers with the best protection equipment that they can have. So you can imagine in the future scanning your face, whether it be on a mobile app or a HoloLens, and having a new mask that's custom fit and reusable to your doorstep 2 days later. And we're going to be building that supply chain using all this learning. So hopefully you've got some questions, and I look forward to taking those. And thanks for your time.